the Prime Minister just met US President Trump. And one important project that's mentioned in the joint statement mentions India intends to invest in the maintenance, repair and financing of undersea cables in the Indian Ocean using trusted vendors. Could you elaborate on the significance of this initiative and the opportunities that it presents?
So, undersea cables are extremely important in terms of connectivity on a global scale. India has multiple landing stations for undersea cables. Those landing stations are manned mainly by the private sector, one or two government landing stations as well. But the biggest problem with undersea cables, as you will very well understand, Navika, and it's not analogous to India alone, but across the world, is really the maintenance of those undersea cables, because they snap all the time. Simple examples where draft levels are low, you don't have deep drafts, fishing nets that cut into cables, marine life that cuts into cables, and therefore repairing those undersea cables is not an easy task. It takes a lot of capex in terms of equipment, setting that up, and therefore maintenance of those undersea cables is also extremely important, and this is a step in that direction.
But we did this in the past. I remember from our times when I covered telecom, Vajpayee era, we had similar undersea cables with Singtel and from India to Singapore. How are those cables doing, and has that experience taught us how to effectively manage this technology?
So it's not it's not rocket science in terms of undersea cables. What's happened over time is following Moore's law in terms of the number of chips that will increase the capacity of the resistor. Similarly, for undersea cables, the amount of information through that OFC that you can push through. So the same cable width can transmit exponentially greater amount of data bits into the system. And therefore, the large volume of data that comes in. And the key issue is separating domestic traffic from ILD traffic. So that's part one. Part two is that the undersea cables have become many more in number, because connectivity to Africa is separately, connectivity to the Middle East is separate, connectivity to Singapore is separate, connectivity to the rest of ASEAN is separate, and then off to to Europe and to the Americas. So the number of cables that are coming in, because the amount of data that's being consumed has also grown tremendously. And with our targets that we are looking at over Bharat 6G, when 6G technology becomes all-pervasive, is to ensure 100 Mbps per customer. We're today at 20 Mbps, so we're looking at a jump of 5. We were at 1.5 Mbps 10 years ago. So guaranteeing 100 Mbps per customer, making sure you're able to give 1 petabyte per gram panchayat.
You've said in the past, as the telecom minister, that in 4G we followed the world, in 5G we walked with the world, and in 6G you're going to lead the world. Can you take our audiences through the blueprint of what you're planning on 6G?
So just to give you an analogy, if you go back to the US of the 1900s, right? And what the Vanderbilts did and what the JP Morgans did in those days was build out the physical infrastructure. They built out the railroads, they built out the highways. And the Industrial Revolution took off on the basis of that physical infrastructure being built. Today, in modern day, in the global arena, we no longer have a physical highway. We have a digital highway. And that digital carriageway is the most advanced today in India. we built out, and I take my hats off to our TSPs, our telecom service providers, our telcos. We built out the fastest 5G rollout in the world. 22 months, 99% of India's districts, 82% of India's population was covered. The fastest 5G rollout. That digital highway today is doing what? It's transforming India. Because what that digital highway does is that it makes opportunity ubiquitous. It creates a level playing field. It creates inclusivity. It creates equity. So what my farmer can do in Madhya Pradesh or my agarwood grower in Assam or Tripura or my queen pineapple grower in Tripura can do the same thing that what people in Bombay and Delhi and Chennai and Bengaluru and Kolkata can do. It creates a level playing field. And the fact today that you have, because of that, 46% of the world's digital transactions, happening in India. 46%. You're talking about 172 lakh crore. Can you imagine the number of zeros in that? That's the volume, that's the amount of rupees being exchanged digitally in a year in India. 150 lakh crore transactions. That capability is because of the digital highway.